I'm going to start off by giving a shout out to my alma mater, the University of Rhode Island. The Rhody Rams were selected for the FCS, I still call it 1AA. The 1AA playoffs. Tennessee got a home game, first playoff home game since 1985. So congratulations to the Rams. Go Rams.
You get an NIL cut for that?
I'm sorry?
You get an NIL cut?
No, I wish I got an NIL. I wish NIL was alive when I played. I probably still wouldn't have made any money though.
Yeah, somebody's gonna clip that "Go Rams" you just said.
Yeah, wrong Rams. Wrong. Rhody Rams. Gotta say it quick. So they can't cut it off. No. Go Rhody.
Darren, what's the message for the team as you guys try to close out this season, these final 6 games? What do you want to see from this team in terms of like this stretch? Yeah,
the one thing that I've been probably the most proud of is the guys have done a phenomenal job of keeping the focus on that particular game. It's easy to get caught up in all the stuff that's been going on between the coaching change and all the changes going on. And I think, in my opinion, the biggest reason we've won the last 2 games is that the guys focused on the preparation. We had 2 really good preparation weeks, and the focus is on just being 1-0. So I know it's, that's, again, a lot of coach speak all in there, but really just keeping the focus on right now the Rams, this game, and not trying to get caught up in the big picture stuff. And that's really what we're trying to keep, because it's easy. I mean, listen, you guys know. I mean, all the stuff, social media, it's easy to get wrapped up in everything else. And so bringing the guys back in today, getting started earlier here in the week, I thought was great. Getting work going and just kind of keeping the focus on the Rams.
Riz, have you seen any dips in enthusiasm or anything like that? Because I mean, sometimes the shine can come off, after a certain period of time.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, and that's what we're stressing. We're stressing that again, all the reasons why we've done well here the last 2 games is to keep the focus on that. Great enthusiasm today in the locker room. Great enthusiasm today at practice. I haven't seen any change. I thought today was one of our better practices that we've had, and so I'm very pleased with the way it's going. We've got to keep that going.
There's anything from just like the last week of self-scouting that's kind of like a major point of emphasis coming out of that?
Yeah, I think we did a deep dive in all 3 phases, and really all 3 phases have the pros and cons. There's some things we've done very, very well, and we got to continue to do well. The emphasis yesterday in our team meeting was more focused on us, and hey, these are the areas we've got to improve. We've talked about defensively, we've got to limit the explosive plays. We can tackle better. I think we've been better the last couple of weeks, but overall, through the whole season, that's been, I've mentioned that's been a little bit of our Achilles heel. Offensively, we've shot ourselves in the foot, particularly in the second half. You look at our penalties in the second half, our third down in the second half hasn't really been what we wanted it to be. And so that's, another area on offense is we've done a pretty good job of moving the ball over the 50-yard line. But if we kind of do a deep dive on kind of like the plus 49 to the plus 30, for whatever reason in that area of the field we haven't been great, maybe closing out some red zone drives. And so that's really been the focus there. Special teams, again, some real good things. We're number 1 in the league right now in kickoff team. And starting field position, we've done our punt return team has been really, really good. Our kickoff return, we had a nice return last week, but that's got to get more consistent. Our net punt could be a little bit better. Matt's done a real good job with the inside the 20s and limiting punt return yardage. So, we've looked at all those things, and those are the couple things that just jump out to me.
The first half, second half difference on offense, like what would maybe be the culprit for that maybe waning as the game goes on?
Yeah, listen, I'd love to sit here and say, man, it's one thing. It hasn't been one thing. It's been one game, man, where 2 games ago, I think against the Falcons, we're 0 for 7 on third down. In the second half, and then these other games where all of a sudden we're going backwards instead of forwards with these penalties, and so it's been a little bit more of a second half problem. If you break down literally our offense, first half, second half, our first half offense has been, I think, adequate enough to win, and not quite in the second half of the game, a football game. So closing out, that's why the focus last week was really the finish, and I thought we did a good job with that. So that we got to continue that.
Darren, what's kind of your view with Taysom Hill and managing carries, touches, and everything with injuries he's dealt with?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a fair question because he has dealt with some of that. I think our usage with him these last couple of weeks is really what we're kind of trying to trend towards. A little bit of everything, not too much of anything. And listen, he's obviously a huge part of what we do. I said it after the game, and I'll say it again. The more he's on the field, the more effective we've been, and all the times I've been here. There's that fine line between getting him too much and not enough. And so we got to do a good job of managing that. And I thought Clint and the staff the last couple of weeks, I think his usage has been really, really good. And obviously he helps us on special teams as well. He has a 42-yard kick return. I mean, and so, I think sprinkling him a little bit everywhere is where we're at our best.
What's been kind of, I guess, the challenge with that? Like, you see him have these big impact games, but not always be really heavily involved in terms of touches.
Well, I think the challenge is usually with a guy that's not Taysom is the mental. He's such a high football IQ, maybe the highest football IQ I've been around, and so you usually are worried about a guy playing tight end and running back and quarterback and kick returner and personal protector. You usually worry about the mental load. That hasn't been an issue with him, and so because of that, he enables us to use him in so many different ways.
Do you think that kind of the morale's been boosted, in the locker room lately between the consecutive wins, guys getting healthy, Derek being back, like all of that? Do you kind of feel morale like getting boosted within this team right now?
Yeah, I would say the morale's been boosted. I don't really know quite how to put my finger on the exact reason. I think it's multiple things. Winning certainly cures a whole lot of that. When you're playing well, morale's usually higher. I think that's been in just this few short weeks that I've taken over. That's been the thing that's been probably the most pleasant thing to me is coming to work every day and seeing the guys in the locker room and seeing the emotion at practice and seeing the guys on the sideline and and so yeah. I mean, I think we've certainly had a morale boost. I think Derek Carr has played some of his best football these last couple of weeks. It's a credit to him and the credit to the offensive staff and all the players around him. I think our enthusiasm, energy, I think all that's been better, so that always lifts morale. And then, like I said, when you win games, it certainly helps.
How much of an exhale was the bye week for you, because you kind of hit the ground running and you didn't really have a chance to take a deep breath?
It was a little bit of an exhale. I traveled a little bit, got to see my son play high school football game. My son Cameron play his last high school football game in Florida, so that was pretty cool. I got to see my son Christian at the University of Texas for his senior day, which was miraculous that I could make it there. I've only been able to go to 3 games in 4 years and watch him, watch University of Texas where he's at. I got a chance to watch my daughter Alex coach high school basketball for a minute down there in Florida as well, so that was pretty neat. That was the exhale part. I'm not going to say I slept anymore, but I got to travel around and see those guys and see my kids, which was great. That part was cool. And listen, just kind of press the reset button. When you're in the middle of the season like this and, it's kind of full throttle, you don't get a chance to, like you said, exhale. And so there's a couple things that we had to get taken care of building-wise. You guys saw the locker room. We've, did some more stuff there. It's great to see our brand new cafeteria, which is absolutely gorgeous. And Mrs. Benson and Mickey and everyone that's involved in that, Dennis Lauscha, everybody did a phenomenal job with that. So when the guys came back off a break, there was a couple new things again, which I'm always in favor of. So that was pretty good.
How do you guys stop just what happened last year against the Rams from happening this year, which is kind of like how the motion kind of broke stuff a little bit now?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing to prepare for that?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're preparing for it. And I think, gosh, I went back and watched that game recently, and I probably wanted to forget about it a little bit. And I think the defense maybe takes a little bit too much of a beating from that game. We had offensively last year, we had the ball at the plus 31, the plus 34, the plus 39, and the plus 42, and got 0 points. And so that game's completely different had we converted in that area. We drive the ball down to the plus 31 the first drive, get sacked. Next drive, we're on the plus 39. We go for it on 4th down, get sacked. Later at the end of the first half, we went for it at the end of the first half. It was 10-7. We get the ball at the plus 42, decide to go for it on 4th, don't convert, they go down and score. And so the game with 1:20 to go in the first half is 10-7. And that's when I think the wheels kind of came off a little bit there. So, and then there were some of those second half plays. They had an explosive on the first play of the second half, so we got to limit those. We certainly can't turn the ball over. But, overall, I don't think we played a great game as a team. And so, I know the score is kind of indicative of, the defense didn't play good. We gave up 30 whatever points. But I think it was really, we got to play more, if all of a sudden we score on that 2-minute drive and they don't score, as you know, the game's completely different. So we got to do a great job of keeping our offense on the field. And I thought what the Eagles did the other night was they got after the first 2 drives, they got the Rams offense off the field and I think 3 consecutive 3-and-outs, and that changed the game. We let the Rams offense stay on the field way too long last year, and that was part of the problem.
Darren, What's your impression of how, I guess it's two different questions since it's two different guys, but Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry have handled their increased role, and obviously they're getting tested, and where do they factor into the big play, the explosive play?
Well, listen, I think you're really two different animals there. I'll start with Alontae. You know, I think I mentioned this last week. I think Alontae this season throughout the year has played outstanding football. You know, every defensive back is going to have their moments where every single defensive back in this league at one point or another is going to get a ball caught on him or, give up a play. He's played really consistent football. He's made a bunch of big plays, both near the line of scrimmage in the backfield and way down the defensive backfield as well. So he's been a huge factor for us this year, and so I expect him to continue to do that. We need him to continue to play really good football. You know, Kool-Aid's had some ups and downs, obviously, because of some injuries, and he's kind of been in and out. I thought Kool-Aid played a consistent game last week. I thought he prepared himself to play, and so he's got to continue to do that. Kool-Aid's played in a lot of big games in college in his career, obviously, in his life. But, in this stretch run here at the end, we're going to need him to step up and play really good football. So, obviously Alontae's had more time on task, and need him to keep playing like he's been playing, and need Kool-Aid to play as consistent as he did last week.
Alontae was obviously one of the guys who had a tough time in that Rams game, or a couple tough moments. How do you think he's responded to the moments of adversity that he's seen in the last couple of weeks?
I think he's responded great. I think his attitude and his mindset and his perspective and how he's handled this year has been really, really good. Coaches have an expression: it's never as good and it's never as bad when you watch the film, right? I mentioned I watched the game. He had a few bad plays. Yeah. And so I think it got maybe, and I don't want to say it got blown out of proportion, but when I went back and watched the game, it's like, maybe it got a little bit too much notoriety, if you will. But, I like the way Alontae's been playing. I think his responses this year have been really, really good. And like I said, we need him to continue to play at a high level.
What do you notice from a player like that?
Are like, have inched closer to the division, the top of the division, being only like 2 games out now, inching closer to that. Do you think that's been, an added motivated factor to your guys to keep them like even hungrier than they were before? Yeah,
we're really just trying to keep our mind off the big picture, quite frankly. If we keep doing what we've been doing the last couple of weeks and keeping the focus on the next opponent, then that stuff takes care of itself, in my opinion. And so I think, like I said earlier, I think it's important for us not to get caught up in big picture. And I think it's really important for us to keep the focus on the current opponent. This week, the Rams. We want to go 1-0. That's really the biggest focus there.
For Alontae, what do you notice in terms of that response? What is he showing you that indicates to you that, all right, he is responding better to adversity?
To me, it's like any young player. It's maturity. A lot of young guys come into our league, and they're coming from Alontae played at obviously a high level school, SEC, and those guys come out of there, and he's a high draft pick, and they come in with a lot of confidence, and it's this league will humble anybody, position, coach, player, anybody can get humbled because there's so many good players, there's so many good coaches, and so a lot of times young players come in and they get humbled a little bit, and it's how you respond to that. So I've seen a maturity in Alontae this year, maybe a little bit different. Not to say he was immature, but to see, I think he's matured a little bit in the fact that his responses, and he's learned how to take on. I think some of the older guys, Honey Badger, DeMario, Cam, some of those older veteran guys have kind of helped him along with that on how to respond. And so I think his response is just a developmental thing and a maturity thing.
You mentioned how the offense obviously had their struggles last year against the Rams. Obviously, they don't have Aaron Donald anymore inside. What's the biggest difference that you've seen from them in the trenches without having one of the greatest defensive?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think the Rams the last couple of years have drafted very, very well. They got a lot of great, really good young players on defense. They kind of had to retool a little bit, with losing Aaron Donald. But if you look at their front four, they've done a really good job, in the draft, drafting some really athletic guys. I think one of the things they do the best, if you look at this last 6-game stretch they've had, they're 4-2. They've rushed the passer very well. That young front has really rushed the passer well. And so, Aaron Donald might have been a little bit one-dimensional. I feel like they're a little bit more spread out. Their talent's a little more spread out. But their front four has been impressive in this, especially in this last 6-game stretch they've had. So I've seen plays from a lot of different guys, and so that's been probably the thing that's stood out the most to me on film.
A couple injury ones. Eric McCoy wasn't Still dealing with that groin?
Yeah, we're just kind of taking it smart with Eric. We started off earlier in the week, so he's kind of just still day to day. That's really all with Eric. We'll just kind of see, probably have more info tomorrow on where he's at.
And then Tano coming back?
Yeah. Tano just broke the team down. So, listen, that's been a long road back. I'm really, really proud of Tano. Probably in the last count, since Tano's gotten injured, I haven't seen someone in this building more than him. And that's a credit to him. Sometimes it's really easy to get frustrated, especially with the rehab process. So, kudos to him. He's just, been grinding through the rehab, and to see him out there today in pads with the helmet on, and it's been a big build-up for him. So obviously we opened up his 21-day window here, but that was a great moment just to see him back out of practice. No different than Nephi coming back from a long injury. I've had a couple of those guys, and so I'm really, really proud of Tano. I'm really, really proud of the way he handled his rehab, and I'm really, really proud. And it was a really, really happy moment for me today to see him out there in pads or with a helmet on.
A few weeks since Chris Olave went on IR, how's he doing?
Yeah, listen, I don't know if you noticed, Chris was out there at practice today kind of helping out. He's kind of still going through that whole process, which is, he's met with a bunch of people. He's got another meeting coming up here next week. He's met with some different specialists throughout the country. A lot of the specialists and a lot of the players that have dealt with these types of injuries. But he's in a good place. Him and I, last couple of days, we had great conversations. He's feeling a lot better, and we just, like I said, with that kind of injury, you just want to make sure you're doing the right thing by the person, and that's what we're doing. And I think we'll have a lot more information on him after next week.
Was a concussion specialist for next week?
Yeah, it's been a bunch. He's seen a few different specialists, but he's definitely seen one of those as well.
So, let me ask you kickoff questions.
Yeah, please.
It's seen a couple big returns in the last couple weeks,
Yeah.
And then you guys in particular. I mean, you kind of had a rotating cast of characters back there doing returns. So, like, how have you seen your group handle that? How do you think the rule changes going across the league?
Yeah, listen, I'll start with our group. We've had a number of different punt returners and kick returners this year, and that's a credit to our roster, I think. Like I said, Taysom had the big one last week. That was an area that we were kind of struggling with a little bit. We hit a little bit of a lull there, in a 4 or 5 game stretch. But I think we've really improved in that area the last few weeks. Listen, I think league-wide, as we've talked about, people are starting to figure everything out as time goes on. I mean, listen, the one that Turpin had, I don't know if you guys watched it, but he had he made about 3 or 4 guys miss. I don't know if that was more schematic than it was just a dynamic player making a dynamic play. And so, but yeah, there have been. I think there's been, if I'm not mistaken, 5 touchdowns on the year, which we haven't had that since I think 2020 or 2021, something like that. But the numbers are still holding steady. And I think, as we said, I think we'll see the return rate kind of creep up here towards the end with the weather games. So, but all in all, I think it's been a really positive thing. I made this comment to someone the other day. You haven't really heard a lot of people talking about the kickoff, which is probably a good thing. If it was a disaster or it was going bad, there'd probably be a lot of conversation. The conversation's kind of gone away because I think things are going the way we thought they'd go from both a analytic standpoint and a injury standpoint. So I think that's all positive, and so there hasn't been a lot of talk about it. And I think we're kind of heading in the right direction. So very, very pleased with how it's going league wide.
What do you think of Pettis' punt return last week? Does he give you something?
Oh yeah. Well, listen, Dante was. You look back at his college numbers. He had really, really good college numbers as a punt returner, and so I've always kind of had my eye on him throughout the league. I've always kind of kept an eye. Great to see him get a big play there. That was one of those all 11 guys working. Him being the one with the ball in his hand, but all other 10 guys were working their butts off. Some really good blocks. The play set up nice. He took advantage of it. Unfortunately, stepped out of bounds by about an inch, or else it would have been a touchdown. But in a weird way, it kind of helped us because we were able to take some more time off the clock. Ended up scoring on the drive, and whittled the game down a little bit. But no, credit to Dante. So it's always nice to have a guy, a veteran back there, that's got a lot of kind of skins on the wall with that, at that position.
Coach, we've got Derek.
You did say you were a big Thanksgiving side guy, so it's definitively the best side.
Definitively the best side dish on Thanksgiving. That's a hard. I've always been I think I mentioned I'm as a mashed potatoes guy. I'm a stuffing guy, but I'm from Jersey, so stuffing with Italian sausage is kind of a staple up there. But I'm a side guy all around.
Very well.
I take very little bit of turkey and kind of pile the sides on. So appreciate you guys.
Appropriate answer.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.